The Polsky Practical Personal Enrichment Series is underwritten by the Norman and Elaine Polsky Family Supporting Foundation within the Greater Kansas City Community Foundation in partnership with Johnson County Community College. It includes topics which are not being offered anywhere else, where successful local professionals share their knowledge to benefit you. Norman and Elaine's name graces this beautiful Polsky Theater, where a variety of events are held each year. And if you're wondering about the green tape around the stage, there will be an academic theater production in this space in a couple of weeks. So we're preparing for that right now, and that's one of the groups that gets to use this beautiful space every year. We thank Norman and Elaine for their generosity, which allows this series, among other organizations across Kansas City and the nation, to serve their communities. So thank you to Norman and Elaine. Thank you very much. Other acknowledgments this evening: Mundy and Yazdi, as usual, a beautiful oriental rug for our stage tonight. And the trees on stage came from the Johnson County Community College Horticultural Center, which is on the west end of campus. And also thanks to our wonderful TV and Carlson Center production crews. Now for the packet, the infamous packet you were handed as you walked in this evening. Please take this home and share it with your family, and let me take you through the contents very, very quickly. On the right-hand side, these are the materials that Norman will be using during the seminar tonight. The pages are green, purple, pink, blue, and gold, and we'll be going through these as Norman gets to these. You can pull these out and follow along with him. And folks, I've exhausted the number of colors that are available in the printing shop here at Johnson County Community College, just so you're aware. Now, on the left-hand side of your packet, we have a blue question card, which looks like this. If you have a question for Norman during the program, please write it on this card. I'll be coming around a couple of times before the question and answer period to pick these up from you, and we'll go ahead and bring these up, and then Norman will answer your questions during the program. And he has generously offered, on the back side of this card, you will notice that if your question is not answered during the program, Norman would like you to write your name and phone number on the back, and he'll be happy to call you in the next 30 days to make sure your question gets covered. So please turn those in later when you're asked. The second card, of course, is our Polsky Practical Personal Enrichment Series survey card. This allows you to give us feedback so we can improve from one seminar to the next, and it also allows you to add yourself to the mailing list if you're not already receiving our information, and to suggest future topics. So we'd love to have your input on that as well. Okay, moving through, we have a gold slip. These books are for sale at the lobby table this evening. Tony DePardo, as well as the book by Jim Stowers, Yes, You Can Achieve Financial Independence. And Norman will be referring to several pages in that book during tonight's presentation. So you may want to take one of those home with you. Only $10. They're normally $25 plus shipping and handling. So that's quite a great deal for you tonight. And The Bold Truth About Mutual Funds by Adam Bold are also available for $10, and Adam will be here with us in June for our next seminar, so you won't want to miss that when Adam comes out. Also on the left side of the packet, a white page, which is Norm's 10 Commandments that he originally shared with a group at his alma mater, Purdue University, back in 1992. A yellow handout about Kindness is Contagious, a program that Norm and Elaine are involved in that's sponsored by the Stop Violence Coalition, co-founded by Sue Ellen Freed. The back of that sheet has kindness quotes that Norm wanted us to share with you this evening. Next, a purple sheet. I had to go with two purples, guys. I told you I ran out of colors. That contains biography information on Norman and Elaine Polsky, and the last sheet on the left, an ivory page that has a list of all of the seminars for 2007. You'll notice that tonight's program is being taped for broadcast on JCCC TV. You can find that on Time Warner, Channel 17, and Comcast, Channel 22. And links to the Polsky series broadcast can also be found on the college's website, which is www.jccc.edu, and you can watch those anytime you like. They should be on, this program will be on the web by next week, so you can look for that. So now, ladies and gentlemen, I think I've told you everything I can. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to welcome to our stage tonight's presenter, Mr. Norman Polsky.
Thank you. This is my buddy. I cracked a rib, and that's what the results. Is there any Semper Fi's out in the audience? See me later, and I'll give you one of these pins from the Marine Corps, lapel pin. The pass out that you have here is very valuable. I hope that you will take it home and share it with your parents and your children. They don't teach this anyplace else. It's a shame, but it's one of the most important subjects in your life, money. And we had Peter Newman here. How many of you heard Peter Newman? And he was just fantastic. How many of you here are 35 or under? 35 or under? Nobody. Okay, not very many. But I'm going to show you at 35 or under, with just $50 a month, you can become a millionaire at $50 a month for 30 years. How many of you are 65 or over? Okay, it's still never too late for you. This is in the book by Mr. Stowers, and I'll be covering that in a little bit later. But I hope that you will take it to heart what I'm trying to talk about. I've been spending the best part of my life now. I'm a philanthropist. We have, Elaine and I, the Polsky Family Supporting Foundation within the Greater Kansas City Community Foundation. We have 43 endowments going, and you'll see a whole list of them on the back of the bio. The first part is about what Elaine and I do, and then on the back is what she's done separately, and then at the bottom are the list of our endowments. The most recent ones we put on are the Kansas City Hospice. We've got the Performing Arts, the Kaufman Center for Performing Arts, we've got about 4 or 5 new ones, and by the time another 3-4 years, we'll be over 50 endowments. We try to help those who want to help themselves, the not-for-profits, to set up endowments. Getting to the purple sheet that talks about, that's this one right here, and that's my quarterly letter, and I really don't watch mutual funds every day, or I spend one whole day a quarter, and I really try to find a mutual fund that will be better than what I already have. Right now I'm at the big 9, and if I can, I'll replace one. If you'll notice there, the S&P 500 index, that is the index of 500 of the largest of Kansas City. I think you can still hear me without that. I'm wired up here. But you'll notice that my big 9 did in 1 year. This is as of the end of the quarter, 3/30. So as of 1 year, they did 24.1% against 11.8 of the S&P, which is my benchmark, which means we were 2 times better than the S&P. And then for 3 years annualized, the annualized means every year average, we were 34.3 against 10.1, which is 3 times. And in 5 years, we were 33.4 against 6.3. And that's 5 times greater. And this is fabulous. 80 to 90% of all the financial advisors or brokers or whoever you go to for advice cannot even equal the S&P 500. And I'll talk about one that did beat him for 15 years, barely, but this past year he didn't. And I'll be covering that. But the first paragraph is always what's new with me. The rest of it is boilerplate. It's the same good principles, except for the second paragraph where I explain about weighted scores that I invented, and average rank, and so forth, which I'm going to explain later. But read along with me on the quarter strategy. In 2006, my big 13 I had at that time, mutuals, had a return of 33.2% versus the S&P 15.8%. That's for that 1 year. And then for 2007, in order to maximize the return, again, I have concentrated on Big 9, which is enough diversification in over 300 stocks. And that's one of the advantages of mutual funds. When you go into a mutual fund, you're getting into about 30 or so stocks. And I can't keep track of 300 stocks, but I can keep track of 9 mutual funds out of 12,000. And I'm going to tell you how I pick them. I have sold 5 of these of my big 13, and I've gone on into in its place, I bought the EWW Mexico Free Index Fund. Now, you've been hearing lately about index funds of Mexico, Brazil. I was in Brazil 2-3 years ago. The main reason people are going to it now, and some financial advisors are promoting it, is that it has about half the charge. In other words, the annual charge on most of mutual funds is either 1.0% or less. These index funds are half that. The other thing, they don't pay out a lot of capital gains and distribution, so you don't have to pay taxes. And they have a heck of a good return. The fourth quarter of 2006, I sold and locked in capital gains and also generated lots of cash, which I reinvested this first quarter of 2007. So that's what was new, that different than what I did on the quarterly report of 12/30/06. And then skipping down to the weighted scores, we'll really cover that later. But if you forget what I tell you, and you'll probably forget 75% of what I tell you tonight, you'll forget within 2 hours after you leave here. That's why I write it down so you can take it home and teach yourself again, and then you teach your parents and you teach your children. None of you want to be a financial burden to the other generations. Skipping on down to on the last sentence in bold of the second paragraph, weighted scores, I say, for you, your parents, and children, see my 10-page presentation, and there's my website, Polsky Lessons for Life. We'll have, if you don't have a website, like I don't, we've got 50 of these copies sitting out there, that the first 50 that pick it up. Otherwise, have one of your grandchildren pull it up on their computer, okay? And for my quarterly articles, send me 4 self-addressed stamped number 10 envelopes. Now, I don't know if you know who Chris Kennedy is, but he is the son of Bob Kennedy from the Kennedy family, and he runs the Merchandise Mart. Well, 5 years ago, he sent me 5 self-addressed envelopes, but didn't put the stamps on it, and he's a millionaire. So I sent him back and told him I wouldn't furnish him unless he put stamps on it, and he did. And for 5 years, he's been getting my articles, so it must be worthwhile. All right, now starting with a Roth IRA. You must have a Roth IRA if you qualify. And there's certain regulations about the Roth IRA. If you file a joint IRS return, I tell you there, you've got to be somewhere between, you can't be more than $150,000 to $160,000 on your adjusted gross income. So there aren't too many of you that are over 65 that have that problem. And but you do have to have $5,000 worth. That's the maximum the government lets you put in, which is $416.66 a month. And you can go to Hen House and sack groceries and make $833 a month, put it in for you and your spouse. And that's just extra precaution in case you need it. And we'll talk about what it means to you to be able to put away $5,000 after the age of 60 or so. And just that. And don't forget, the worst enemy you have is next to your brokers and your financial advisors is the 3.1% inflation that's been prevalent throughout the last 60 years. So that the average American has less than $50,000 put aside for their retirement. And and if they're 65 and they retire, by the time they're 85, that's 20 years, that 3% loss on inflation, you've lost 60% of the purchasing power. That $50,000 will only buy $20,000. And a nursing home today in Kansas City is $40,000 a year. But 20 years from now, it's going to be $400,000 a year. Without Medicare, and you have to have an operation when you're 65 to 85, one operation could cost you $500,000. So I tell you, if you don't follow my advice, what I'm trying to get across to you is that if you don't have any money when you're 85, go commit a federal crime, go to a federal prison, you'll even get dental, okay? How many of you were here when Mr. Stowers was talking? Okay, that was a year ago. And he told me before, he got up on the stage, I'm going to scare the hell out of them. They're going to run out of their money. They're going to live longer than their money for retirement. And when right near the end, the lightning hit this building, we had to disband. Next day, I wrote him a letter. I said, boy, you sure scared him, but how did you get God to do that? Okay, so the Roth IRA tells you all about it. There's no income tax if you put in $1,000 today and you want to pull it out tomorrow. That's your principal. You can pull it out. But if you start having earnings and you've got 10 years worth of earnings, you can still pull it out. But if you're over 59 and a half and you've had it for 5 years without paying taxes. Otherwise, these 401ks and company pension plans, did you know that Delta wrote off $400 billion in pension money to all of their employees? Well, don't count on your company pension plan. And even if you're working for the government, don't count on it. You better take care of your retirement for yourself. And really try to get your parents, because they don't want to be a burden to you, and try to teach your children. You don't want them to be a burden on you, and they don't want to be a burden to you. So pass it along. There's a whole bunch of reasons here why you should have a Roth IRA. Okay, now I'm down into the principles on how to become financially independent. The most important, my goal is 20% per year. But over the past 5 years, I've been doing 33%. That's unheard of. But still, at 20% per year or more is what you want to be involved with. Then the second thing, you want to have 20 to 30 years to let it grow. And this is like a tree. This is why American Century has a tree on their thing. A tree takes time to grow, and then it gives you fruit every year. And that's what you're trying to get out of your retirement. Don't forget, start writing questions on that blue card that you have, and I'll try to answer them today, or I'll answer them later. Okay? Another thing is you want to do consistent savings, like $416.66 a month is your $5,000 that you're allowed if you're over 50 years old. And at 20% compounding for 30 years, go down to this table at the bottom, and let's go to the, let's say you're 65 and you've got 20 years, and you'll put away the $5,000 a year. So this thing at the bottom is based on $100, and so this is 5,000 is 50 times greater. So $2,000 times 50, you will have put in $100,000 invested. Now go over to the 20% column, and you'll see 22,402. But you want to multiply that by 50, and that's $1.2 million. So this is a nest egg you could have, even if you've got insurance and all that sort of thing. And incidentally, I really tout long-term insurance, which is not only for nursing homes, but it's for any kind of home care that if you need or whatever. That's more important than your life insurance, which you leave to your children, or you leave it to the Uncle Sam to take in tax. So you see this table is terrific. Now, if you're go down to 30 years, and let's say you're just under 35 years old, and you've got 30 years to go. So here's 30 years, and $50 a month is all you have to do, which is $600 a year. So multiply everything in the table by 6. So you've got 3,000 times 6. You will have put in 18,000, and go over to the 20%, and you've got 141,826, and multiply that by 6, and that's about $850,000. So you see, long time is necessary. Consistent savings is. This is all in Mr. Stauer's book that he's been willing to give us for $10 for you people. You should buy one for your parents and one for your children and your grandchildren. All right. So then, why I like mutual funds. First of all, you're getting expert daily management, now, don't forget, there's 12,000 or more mutual funds out there, and I'm only picking 9 out of the 12,000. 90% of those 12,000 don't even match the S&P 500, and I'm going to show you that pretty soon. But there's more to it than just the rate of return. I want them to have at least a 3-year history and steady management. And then I want them to be medium size. As too large, over $10 billion of people's money, they can't handle it. Of their total assets. They have too much difficulty buying and selling and making a profit and showing a good return. And number 3, how to choose. I want them to invest in blend, which means both value or growth. Now, value investors, they'll buy something, but if it goes up or down 10% or 20%, they'll sell it right away. Growth people hold on for it longer. So I want them to do both. Don't be restricted by your prospectus that says you can only go for value or you can only go for growth. I'd like them that say they go for blend either way. And then I want them to invest, number 4, diversify into mutuals, investing in mid-cap stocks, which are companies with 2 to 10 billion market value. Now, this market value, that's capitalization, and it's the share price times the number of shares. And I'd like them to also be able to go into large cap stocks. That's over 10 billion, or any cap. Although I don't usually buy them a mutual fund if they go over $10 billion in their own assets, or they invest in companies with $10 billion. That's like IBM, Eastman Kodak, and Minnesota Mining. I don't get involved with those kind of mutuals. Any cap includes small cap stocks under $2 billion and micro cap stocks under $500 million. Generally, new companies along with ultra small cap stocks under $100 million. Now, these smaller ones are more risk mutual funds because they don't have the capital, the size to take care of people pull out money from the mutual fund and so forth. And then I go use the Wall Street Journal after each quarter. They have a section called Mutual Fund Quarterly Review, and they have one page in there that says Category of Kings. And I do pull that one page out. I don't read anything that these people predict, or they're giving you opinions, what the market's going to be, and so forth. The market's always volatile. People are always worried about, is it going to go up or is it going to go down? I don't pay any attention to all that. All right, so anyway, this is a very important quarterly article. If you want it, you have to send me 4 self-addressed stamped envelopes, number 10. Now turn over. I'm going to show you my history. This is up at the top. You see I have this is my history going clear back to the first mutual fund I got into was with Sir John Templeton back in 1970. We were in Young Presidents Organization together, YPO, and we had a seminar on mutual funds, and he got me convinced that I should be going into mutual funds, and I actually put it into his Frank Templeton. Well, in those days it was just called Growth Fund, and I really made good money on it. From 1970, he was in Japan, and if any of you are old enough to know that after World War II, we devastated Japan and built them back up again. And by 1970, they were the major country to be in, not America. They were better than we were, and all that sort of thing. But then he made his money out of Japan, but then he came back to Ford, put his money into Ford. I got out then. And then I went to the next one down. Peter Lynch and his Fidelity Magellan. He got up to $30 billion in assets. He couldn't handle it. So he quit. But look at the size of it now. It's at $43.8 billion. People are still plowing money into it. And look how foolish they are. Go way over to the 3 years. You would have only made 3.9. And the S&P up above has a 3 years of 10.1. So this guy is way worse than the S&P 500. So it's a good thing I got out. But then I went to the next one down, and this is John Kowalski in this AIM Health Science. He was the first one to realize biotech and health is going to be a big market. But then they caught him double dipping his personal and the business, and they fired him. Then there's American Century. I went to my friend Jim Stowers, but now I got out of him. He got too big. He's got $12.5 billion. And if I'd have stayed with him, I'd have had only 1.4 over the last 3 years. That's not even, the inflation is 3.1. I'd have been losing money if I'd have stayed with Mr. Stowers. Then I went to look down there at Legg Mason. This is the guy, Bill Miller, for 15 years beat the S&P 500. And if you go across to him, go way over to the right. I have every year. So 2006, he only did 5.9 against the S&P of 15.8. So that's the first year he didn't beat the S&P. Now the year before, 05, he did 5.3 against 4.9, so he barely beat him. And the year before that, 04, he did 12.0 against 10.9. He barely beat him. But he had that reputation in Wall Street. He's the guru. But it's a good thing I'm not with him anymore, because he had his 3 years is 7.5. So anyway, that's my beginning. I was in 50% in preferred cumulative stocks, and I bought one mutual fund after another, and that was from the period of 1970 to January 16th, 96 for 26 years. And that's when I sold my company, which was Fixtures Furniture. And outside you'll have if you want to pick it up, here's my history at Fixtures. I made the commercial furniture, stacking chairs and so forth. The biggest stack chair gang spectacular job in America is at Orlando Convention Center. We put it in with 70,000 of our chairs. And on the back is my creed. If you want it, there's some on the desk outside. Then I went into 100% mutual funds. I've been through all of these, and you can see the most recent one is Bridgeway, the second one down. I just let them go about 2 quarters ago, and the main reason I did, you can see that they're year-to-date in 1 year. I would have been a negative 0.05. 3 years is 8.8. So they started losing their and the same thing with Pro Funds Ultra Japan, way down. Pro Funds Ultra Japan, they lost they were going along like gangbusters, but then they had 1 year would be 1.5, and 3 years was 26.2, which is good. 5 years, 12.7, which wasn't so good. So anyway, these are my averages here. Now I want to go back. Now here's my big 9 down here. But let's go back up. I want to teach you about how I invented go up at the top, weighted scores. And I had 5 years ago, I invented the old long term. Now I made how important to me, there's only 4 categories, year to date, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. How important to me, and I gave 3 years a 5. That's the most it's the most. And 5 years I gave a 3. I could have given them both a 4, but I gave it 5. 3 years to me is the most important. It's more important than the 5 years. So they add up to 5 and 3 is 8 of the 11 possible. So if you'll look down, you'll see, let's go through the S&P 500. I have it figured for you. You got a year-to-date is a 1 times the 0.6 plus 2 for 1 year times the 11.8. You follow me? Plus 5 is the 3 years, and the S&P was 10.1, plus 3 times the 6.3, which was the 5 years. If you add those together, you'll come up with 94 for the S&P. That's the weighted score of the old long term. Now, if you go down and you see that they're 94, now my beginning mutual funds had a weighted score of 64. I didn't do as good as the S&P. But all of these others, the miscellaneous, have a weighted score, look at the very bottom, an average of 120. So I was on the right track. 120 against the 94. But look at my big 9. It's 324 against the 94. So I'm almost 3.5 times better than the S&P. Now, 2 years ago, I came up with a new short term, and because I didn't know, I started feeling that short term has some relevance to this whole thing. So I gave the year to date, I gave it a weight of 2 instead of 1. 1 year, I gave it a weight of 5 instead of 2. 3 years, I gave it a weight of 3 instead of 5. And 5 years, I gave it a weight of 1. So the year-to-date in 1 year is 7 out of the 11. And again, you can go through that. The S&P is 97. And go down to my miscellaneous. They are at 88, not as good as the S&P. But my big 9 is 265 compared to the 97, so I'm better than 2.5 times better than the S&P with these big 9. Okay, so I've tried to teach you how the weighted score is important, but then I decided, well, how do I put it together? What's more important, the new or the short term or the old long term? And I came up with ranking which one is the best. that would be closer to a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of the whole thing. And that's when I put the ranks in. If you look, all of those beginnings are in the 11 or 12. If you go into the miscellaneous, they have an average there of 9. If you go to my big 9, they have an average rank of 6. So then I came up with, and then they on the other side, on the short term, so I add the two together. Like let's take Fidelity Emergency Markets. They have a 7 rank for the old long term and a 9 rank for the short term. 9 and 7 is 16. I divide by 2, go way across, and you'll come out to 8.0. Now that's my beginning, the first test I put before I pick a mutual fund. They've got to have a good average rank. Now let's go to the other page that you've got. It's this page that's got all of my big 9 on it. Let's see if it's got a color. It's a pink. Go to your pink. Okay? Now there is my big 9, and you'll be able to see more how important the average rank is on the left. On the left, you can see that my Fidelity Emergency Market, the quarter before was a 6, and then it went to an 8, so it lost its position by 1.3. The next one held even, so it was a 1. That's good. And here's my big disappointment here. ING Russia. In fact, my article says I am skeptical of ING Russia, LATRX, due to political climate. So going on down, you can see the average ranks. Now, the best one I've got, see, that ING Russia used to be the best. Way back on 1230, it was number 1.0 average rank. Then 1.5, which was still great. 3.5 was great. 1.0 was fantastic. But then it slipped to 6. That's what started me worrying about them. And I don't know if I'm going to sell them now or wait till the next quarter and see. All right? And so that's why this average rank is so important to me. Now look down below. I've got some potentials there. And in fact, this U.S. Global World Precious Minerals, look how it went from a 1 to a 4 to a 3.5 to a 9. I have this quarter, I have been selling it. And what I've been doing is I've been buying the two things down below called iShares Australia and iShares Singapore, and I already own iShares Brazil and iShares Mexico Free. Now those are indexed, and a lot of these financial advisors are starting to get on to buying them because of their low charge and taxes and all that sort of thing. Okay, so this is a bigger page than what you had there. Okay, then the next thing I want to go to is my legacy, the green sheet. Okay, this is Mr. Stour's book. I'm going to have to kind of lean on this stool. My legacy to you. Write down your questions now. These are from his book. Yes, you can. It's my Bible. I suggest you really buy it and you read through it. But here's his most important pages. Page 56. It's never too late. And most of you are over 60 in this room. And it says, if you would have started at the age of 20, you would have only needed, now this is at 16%. He never talks about anything more than 16%. Because he doesn't believe people will believe that you can make more than 16. And he's right. He can't make 16. I make 33. Okay? At age 20, you need to put away $1.57 a month. You've got 12 months and you've got 45 years to age 65. So you're going to put away $848,000, and you'll have $524,000. At age 40, you'll have to put away $31 a month times 12 times 25 years to age 65. You have to put away $9,363 to have that worth $524. If you're 60, it's still not too late. You put away $131 per month times 12 times. You only have 5 years. You will put away $67,000, but you're going to have $500,000. Now, why don't you do it? All right. The problem is these financial advisors tell you when you're 65, sell your stock, sell your mutual fund, go into government treasuries. You got to play it safe. But they don't tell you about the 3.1% inflation. All right. Now then, another thing he talks about is the page 137. These are his 4 major principles. The value of the dollar has decreased 3.1% per year over the past 60 years. However, the Dow Jones stocks have always sought new highs. And in 1987, when it dropped 500 points, and one day, that's October, by December 31st, it gained that all back and showed a positive 5 for the year. But it always seeks new highs over time. And on the Dow Jones, which was started in 1897, if you would have put $1 in, I'm reading on the green sheet number 2, you would have had $11,220 at the end of 93, whereas the dollar of 1897 was worth only 6 cents. Now that should scare you. All right? Lightning don't strike. Page 190. The amazing results of consistent monthly investments of $100 if you agree to go for 10 years and then sell. Now you're going to put away $100 a month. You're going to go for 10 years. Which investment is best by 27%, A or B? Pull out your blue papers. Here's from his book. And the guy is here talking to the soothsayer. What do you predict? What's the market going to do? Okay. But go to page 2 on that, on the back. And you're starting at $6, investment A, and investment B. Investment A goes from $6 in the 10 years, and you're going to sell after 10 years, not before, but you're going to sell, and at $16. The other one, investment B, goes from $6 for the first 5.5. It keeps going down to $1.50, and then it gets back to $6. How many of you say B would have more money? Raise your hand. Okay. That's correct, because at $1.50, you're going to buy 70 shares, whereas up there, investment A is probably about $10. You're only going to buy 10 shares. And then if you look on the back of the thing, it shows you that if you'd have stuck it out, investment A would have gotten you $19,000. Investment B would have gotten you $24,000 on a $12,000 investment. So that's 27% more on investment B over investment A. Follow that? But how many of you have got the guts to start an IRA and you go pick one of my mutuals and it starts going down, 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 and it's 5.5 years and you're still going to keep putting in that $416.66 a month? Well, I don't know. But that's when you're really better off, because you're going to have more shares. But you never thought about that before. But he's got it all in that book. Okay, now let's go to, what are you telling me? 10 minutes. 10 minutes? Boy. Okay, go to my strategies here. I stay fully invested, as I cannot guess the market timing. I cannot buy and hold any mutual if I can quarterly find a better replacement mutual fund than I do so. I'll replace it. I do not watch daily results of the stock market, which is like a roller coaster and can give you heart failure. I spend 1 day quarterly to evaluate each mutual in my portfolio and look for future replacements. I do not rely on investment advisors. If they are so smart, why do they have to work? Don't have a mindset. This is an important thing. Women think men have the brains. That's not true. Or you think your brother-in-law has the brains because he's an investment advisor. You learn it yourself. There's nothing more important than your own financial independence past the age of 100. Most of you are going to live past 100. I'm 83. I may make it to 100. Anyone can learn mutual fund investing, young or old, women or men. I listen to Adam Bold, Susie Orman, Peter Newman. They do give you good advice. The only thing with Susie Orman, she says you shouldn't be investing until even your house is paid for. And that's not true. Adam Bold and myself and Newman, we believe your house, you've got to live someplace, and the value of the houses have been going up, and it does give you security, especially if you're over 65 and you want to pay it off, get it paid off. There's some kind of a sense of security there. I believe most people will outlive their retirement funds with no Social Security or Medicare or company. My gosh, my wife and myself are going to a different doctor almost every day. We're using up your Medicare. Then I believe people should pay off bad debt credit cards. There's no question about it. Now, Susie Orman said there was, in one of her books, an average one is $9,000, and if you pay the minimum, it'll take you about 30 years to pay it off. In December, I established realized gains by selling the difference between market value and cost each mutual. And with those funds generated, buy more mutual funds for better safety through more diversification. And some hogs get slaughtered, remember that, in the market. And if you think you've made good money and you want to stay with that one, and you cannot buy and hold. You've got to look at it every quarter. Then some people are still waiting for the 1999 from the crash of 2000, 2001, 2002 on technology. They're waiting for their technology to come back. That's foolish. I am not concerned with tax consequences, commissions going in, or annual cost charges, as long as my rate of return is 20% or greater. I buy mutuals that invest in any cap blend. I do not invest in mutuals without a 3-year history. So that's my legacy to you. Now look on the backside. How safe is our stock market? This is the last thought I think I'll leave you with. The rest of this I hope you will take home and read every word. It's all very important, and then pass it on. Okay, if you would have put away, now the S&P 500 was started in 1957. If you would have put away $1,000, a lot of people would have gotten out after the first year because it lost 10.8%. And if you look, it already gained that all back. I said over time it always gains, seeks new highs. It was 1,000, and by the year after it went down, it was at 1,277. Go on down further where you had 2 years back-to-back, 73, 74. And in those 2 years, you lost 41%. But it was at 4,269 before it dropped 2 years. And if you go 2 years later, it's at 4,540. You gained it all back. And the same thing is true down here in the 3 years, 2000, 2001, 2002. We had 3 bad years back-to-back, and it's gained it back by the end of 2006. But more realistic over here is the last 23 years, because it's got technology and it's got global influence of the marketplace and biotech and health science. If you'd have put $1,000 in, you'd have $15,000, which is a rate of return over the 23 years of 12.56 per year. Now, will your financial advisor say, if they did 12.56, I'll get you better than that, or else don't pay me the commission? Okay, get your blue cards, questions ready, and pass them to the aisles. They're going to collect them. We're going to go into that session, okay? Dr. Joe Sopcich's coming up, and he's going to ask me questions from the cards that she has collected. Oh, one more thing. Here is Fidelity for $2,500, the amber, or what is that, gold? For $2,500, you can open up a Fidelity account, a brokerage account. It doesn't cost a thing, but look how good they give you. They give you how much every month. They'll tell you what the quantity of each of the mutuals, and then it tells you how much of the cost basis of each, how much was it worth last month, and how much is it worth now as of December. This is my mother and father, one of our endowments. We put in $70,000, $30,000 from my kids, and $30,000 from Elaine and me, and we have had 10 programs that have cost over $80,000, and yet we've still got, it's worth $71,000. So that's pretty good investing. And then over on the right, it tells you what your realized gains or losses are. What a terrific. On the back, Midwest Trust can even knock out, but you got to have quite a bit of money invested with them. Their minimum fee is 1% per year. And, or no, it's $1,000 a year, I think it is. Is that right, Mark? Allison? I think it's $1,000 a year is your minimum. But they can give you a time-weighted thing. And this time, he gives me this on this one of my accounts, time-weighted. You can see that the S&P is, for 1 month, as of March 31st, was 1.26, and my account equities was 4.93. I was 3.9 times better. This is how long did you hold it when you sold, before you sold it, or how long have you held it if you still got it. And then for 1 year to date, I'm at 5.61 against the 0.63 or 8.9 times better. And for 1 year, they got 18.36 for my equities against their 11.82 is 1.6 times better. All right, so we'll go into the question. Pass those blue cards over, and don't forget to fill out the green card. Okay? I've got to get my... Come here, buddy. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
Okay, you know who Dr. Joe Sopcich is? He's not a PhD, but he told me to drink hot tea and honey because oxygen ruins my throat. But he's not a MD. He's the other kind.
That's right. Norm, have a seat. Are we ready to go?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me? There are an incredible number of very sophisticated questions here, and we'll do our best to get through these. So, Norm, here we go.
Go ahead.
Okay. The first one. How can I get some of that oxygen you're on?
Okay, this is a new invention called Iogen 1. I can take this on an airplane. You can't take those live oxygens on. These have replaceable batteries. 3 hours they last. And I've got 3, 1 in here and 2 here, and I got 1 at home. So I've got 9 hours right here.
So that puts us to about 3 a.m. for those of you who are interested in sticking around. Okay, Norm, here's the first one. How do you narrow down the list to consider your mutual funds from 12,000 available?
Well, I told you my first requirement is the average rank. And that starts it. And I don't look at them if they're otherwise. Then if you really don't even want to know how to figure average rank, go down the Wall Street Journal at the end of every quarter and look for anything with a 5-year history. And if it isn't better than 20%, then you won't find very many better than 20%. Now, for some reason, Wall Street has left out the 3-year history. I went to the head of the whole thing and said, what's the matter with you people? 3 years is more important than 5 years. They used to give you 10 years. I've always given 10 years a zero weight because it has no relevance to today's market. So anyway, that's where it starts. And then I've got those other, look on the bottom, how I choose. There's other requirements. I don't want to be too big and all that sort of thing.
Along the same lines, do you pick only from the Wall Street Journal? Are there other sources that you use?
Oh, yeah. Midwest Trust, who I have a lot of accounts in. Mark Allison, he's here someplace. He gives me information.
Mark, where are you? Take a bow. Mark, for your information, is the only financial investment manager that Norm will work with in the Midwest region. So it's quite a distinction.
And he's running, I think, $5-something billion.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we appreciate you being here tonight, Mark. Let's see, ready for the next one? Okay.
Midwest Trust Company.
Midwest Trust. Okay. Explain what you did during the 2000 and 2001 crash.
The 2001 crash, I'd have to go back and see where I was at the end of 2000, although you can look on some of my big nine clear over to the right, and you can see what they did in the year 2000, 2001, 2002, and 2003. I've never looked at it that way, but it's there. Okay, go ahead. What's the next one?
Okay. Do you...
Wait a second. I can tell you. 2001, 2002, 2000. Go to that, what was it, a golden sheet? No, pink sheet. Go to the pink sheet and look there and see what happened to those big nine. But I wasn't in those big nine at the time, but you can see they weathered the thing out pretty good. They maybe only had 2 years, or 1 year bad, 2 years bad. One of them did have 3 years bad, which was Price Latin America, and today it's one of my best. So nothing is forever, okay?
Do you buy all your stocks through Fidelity?
I don't buy stocks. I only buy mutual funds. But I try to buy them through there. Like Morgan Stanley, I used to have here on my big nine, but I got rid of them because I own them, but it takes $100,000 to open an account. And they are in the global real estate all over, and Fidelity cannot handle them. And if I find a really good one, which once in a while I do, that Fidelity can't handle, I'll buy it individually. Okay?
At what point should a portfolio become more conservative?
All the time. Nobody wants to lose money, and you should be looking at it from a point of view that you will look at it every quarter, or give me your envelopes, and I'll tell you what I'm doing. And if you want to follow, I don't tell you what to do. I tell you what I'm doing. And conservative, nobody can. You can't put a thermometer in somebody's mouth or them or whatever it is and come up with what's conservative, what's aggressive, and all that kind of stuff.
All right.
But I want 20% per year, or better, in up and down markets. I want to always beat the S&P 500.
Oh, this is a nice one. It's time for you to get a haircut. Your mother. Thanks, Mom. Okay. Do you give any special consideration to foreign funds, such as Russian, Mexican, etc.?
I have quite a few foreign funds now because America is losing its position. You may not realize what's going on. Like if you look down my list, ING Russia, and I'll tell you that's going to go back communistic. And he's Putnam. They put that guy in jail 5 years ago. He was the richest man in Russia. He was Jewish. They came on board with guns, put him into prison. He's still there. They claim he didn't pay his taxes. They took over his Yukon oil, and in 5 years, Russia government has run it into the ground. Pathetic. And right now, we're not getting along with Russia too well. They vote against everything. In fact, they're selling Iran nuclear equipment.
Okay, next question. Why cannot mutual fund professionals, professional managers, match the results that the index standard is able to achieve?
I don't know.
It's 90%.
They get good salaries and all that kind of stuff, and they spend all their time. The most of them have big offices, and they have 1,000 people working there and all that kind of stuff. But they haven't read my material.
That's right. Well, that's right. We'll get them on the mailing list. Norman, how many people are on your mailing list?
Oh, I've got over a couple of hundred.
A couple of hundred people. That's true.
And then when I get down to the last envelope, I stamp it and say, send me 4 new ones. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't.
Okay. Now, this one's a little specific. This is someone who really got into this, into your chart here, and I kind of put it here for you. And I underlined the question. Why did you get out of Morgan Stanley, looks like Institute, with a rating of 353?
I didn't get out of it. I personally have it. But the problem is Fidelity can't buy it and hold it, and it takes $100,000 initial required. And I got
well, how many of you can just rush out and get into that tonight? That's okay. Let's go. Now, here's a good one. How do you know the 1 year, the 3 year, and the 5 year results determine the future?
They always put down these investment advisors. The past history is no resemblance to what it can be in the future. If you want to hire somebody to work for you, or even a maid, don't you call the references? But maybe that maid can't work in your home because it's a different environment. But still, you go someplace to check out references and so forth. All right?
Okay. How did you get, this is a different tangent.
And the past is what I'm saying has some relevance to the future.
How did you get started in business?
Are
you gasping, Elaine?
My father was Smith St. John Manufacturing Company, and I was over there in Camp Pendleton. I was a line infantry officer in the Marine Corps preparing for the invasion of Japan when Truman dropped the bomb and saved my life. My life expectancy would have been 5 minutes on the beach. Then I met Elaine there on one night. I asked her on a double date. I asked her for a date behind my buddy's back. The next night, and that next night I asked her to marry me, but we couldn't get married because my life expectancy. But when the war ended, and we got married on July the 4th, 1946. So I went to junior college here in Kansas City. Was the best education I had. Purdue University, the Marines sent me there for a year and a half. Then after the war, I went to UCLA and took accounting, so I've had like 2 different degrees. But I was going to go home and work for my father, but my brother-in-law was there ahead of me, so I ended up starting my business. But I made things that my father could buy and get me into other dealers, like a coat rack, then a counter stool, then a bar stool, and then a chair for $5, and then stacking chairs. I saw that in '81 because buildings were too expensive. They had to have multi-purpose rooms, and that's when I got to be the king of the stacking chair business.
That's incredible. Norman, I heard you once before describe your, I guess, day-to-day routine, because growing a business like that, you don't work 8 to 5. What was your routine to make that happen? Because hard work is one of your
read
commandments.
my 10 Commandments, and I'd say that you should not waste time. I've been asking God for 8 days a week. He won't give it to me. But I was at work at 5 o'clock. Bob Snyder is here. He was my vice president he's sitting right there. He was my vice president of plant and everything. And he'll know that I was there. And at 6, 7 o'clock, my son would come in, and he was the head of marketing. And I'd say, Joel, I need you. And he'd say, boy, it's good to be needed. But he dropped dead at the age of 26 in 1982. So I lost my right arm.
Okay.
But that's what got us started in philanthropy, because we started 6 different endowments at that time. Colorado Outward Bound, the Beth Shalom Youth USY, and junior achievement, and then in the profession, the American Society of Interior Designers and the International Business Designers and the fighter accreditation thing.
And today, I think Norm mentioned earlier, and you may have caught this, that him and Elaine have established 43 endowments that support causes all over the world, and that's an incredible thing. Okay.
One of the best thrills we've had was the JNF, Jewish National Fund, came to our house in August when the war was on in Lebanon and so forth, and he showed us pictures of kids holding up the sign. Thank you, Polskys, for getting us out of the bomb shelters and the way of the rockets. And we had set up for Joel Polsky a sports complex in the American Independence Park just south of Jerusalem. So they were out of harm's way.
That's terrific. And you're also sitting in the Polsky Theater, and this is also the Polsky Seminar Series, which is being underwritten by an endowment that the Polskys have established. So it's wonderful. Okay, back to the questions. We use Vanguard as our mutual fund company. How do I go about picking top funds for maximum return on investment? What I have been doing is picking a return on investment of 20% for the last year. Is there a better way?
Vanguard 500 mimics the S&P 500. If you want to be passive, just go buy that. And you don't have to fedray your cup. That means mix yourself up. But what was the last part of that?
Well, he picks...
Vanguard, but still they don't have good mutuals. I don't own any of their mutuals. I don't even buy their Vanguard 500, but I recommend if you don't do anything, go to Vanguard 500. It mimics the S&P 500. You'll be doing better than most of these financial advisors.
Okay. Representative Ron Paul says the dollar has declined 95% since 1934 because of manipulation by the Federal Reserve. I agree with the statistic, but not the reason. What is your opinion?
I don't know anything about that. I told you about the dollar went down to 6 cents.
That's right.
And that's scary.
And Pat Mitchell.
And what's the reason?
Yeah.
We're losing the old work hard, and this is a land of opportunity, thank God, and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And in fact, we're getting lined up too much with politicians and lawyers.
Do we have any attorneys in the audience? Yeah, right. Okay, Norm, here's another one. Do you still feel good about looks like T. Rowe Price Latin America?
Yep, it's still good. It's probably one of my best. In fact, I even mentioned that it's still holding good compared to LETRX, which I'm afraid of right now. Okay.
Do you use any software to calculate long-term and short-term scores?
No, I don't have any computer. My ex-secretary, who's now the head of human resources, I put her through college. That was the best motivation that I had in my business. It builds onto a person, or enrichment, hiring from within and building. So she does all my computer work at night. And she's got it all worked out now. She can, in one day now, I don't have to use Wall Street Journal. She can go to Morningstar and get everything she needs and knock out that big history of mine in one night.
Norman creates everything in that packet himself. So all those numbers, all those spreadsheets, Norman writes it and he does it all himself. Okay. Please explain no-load mutual funds, expense ratios, and how they are different if you buy directly from the fund family versus through a brokerage like a Schwab or Scottrade or something.
I don't care if they're load or no load. If you look on ING Russia, they've got a 5.75% going in, And if you don't hold it for a year, they have a 2% on the way out. I don't care about that. Not when they made me 40%. What the heck?
Right, right. Okay.
An expense ratio is a total annual charge, but it's figured into their rate of return. So if they're telling you they did a 30% rate of return, it's taken care of whatever their charge is. And most of the charges are 1% or less.
That's right. Okay. When you talk about putting away so much a month, how do I determine how much to put away and where to put it, where to put the money?
Pick out one of these mutual funds, and there's ways to save money. And one of my things here at the campus, I'm going to try to get them off of smoking and Starbucks coffee. If you can do that, you can save your $50 a month is like nothing. It's easy. And then you don't go to a grocery store and go down the thing and just start picking. You have in your shopping list, and you pick what you need. Don't do impulse buying. Okay. There's ways to save money. In fact, get the book by who gave me the book? Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The rich dad went through all the college and everything, and he got a degree and he got a PhD, and he and he's working for money. And money, you get hungry again. You got to have another raise. But the rich dad didn't go to school past the age of 13, and he started investing. He bought a little piece of real estate. He got a paper route, and he started saving. And pretty soon he had money working for money instead of him working for money. That's a good philosophy.
Obviously one that I didn't follow growing up. But if I had known Norm, I would have. I can tell you that. Norm, how did you learn about philanthropy? I know you set up those endowments to honor your son, but as a child, I think, did your mother?
Yeah, my mother and my father, this was in Depression years. My mother was the blue box lady of Kansas City. That's the JNF, Jewish National Fund. Jewish families all over the world had a pushka, and they would put a penny, a nickel, a dime, and then they would call up and say, Rachel's coming. And the mother would have the whole family there to count it out. That's the money they used to buy from Palestine, from the Arabs, land. And that's how they had that I learned from. But she used to even have money to buy groceries for somebody else, a family that couldn't afford it, and so on. In fact, I found out about my mother, especially after she died. People came up and told me what she did for them.
That's terrific. Okay. Now, Norm, you haven't really talked about bonds tonight. And here's a question. Bonds. Do you ever invest in bond funds?
Nope. Or I don't invest in bonds or treasuries or corporate bonds or government bonds.
Why not?
I don't even invest in Israel bonds. I just give them a charity.
Why don't you invest in bonds?
I don't know enough about them to make 20%, but I don't know anybody that does.
Okay. Now, this one is kind of specific. At age 48, I've got an IRA with individual stocks and approximately about $20,000. Should I transfer the IRA to one of your mutual funds, and if so, which ones?
Realize that an IRA, there are these kind of things. You can go to any bank, you can go to any mutual fund, you can go to any investment house, and you can open up a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA if you qualify. You can't make too much money, just a gross income. Or you can open up an individual account, or you can open up a trust account. And so don't get hung up about IRAs are different. The only thing is the government allowed you to defer taxes on a regular traditional IRA, But by the time you're 80 and a half, you got to pay all that back. And you have to start drawing out and paying it every year. But a Roth IRA, you'd never have to pay the taxes.
Okay. I see Emily's ready here to kind of bring the evening to a close. But Norman, at 83 years of age, to stand up here and lead everybody through this program with materials that you've done, and while being on auction, that's an incredible accomplishment. And I think Norman deserves a huge round of applause.
Don't forget to buy Tony DiPardo's book,
Wait a minute,
and
I'm
Mr.
supposed to say
Stowers,
that.
and Mr.
That's-
Bold.
That's my line.
Okay.
Before you go, first of all, thank you so much for coming to the Polsky series this evening. And two things I need to tell you is don't forget to fill out your green survey card, because I get phone calls from Norman about these cards. So he wants to know what you thought of the series, tell us how to improve, put yourself on the mailing list, and please suggest future topics for us. We would love to hear from you. And also, there are 3 books for sale in the lobby. Tony DiPardo, I believe, is already ready for you out there if you'd like to buy his book for $15. And then we have Adam Bold's book, The Bold Truth About Mutual Funds, for $10, and Jim Stowers' book, which Norman referred to throughout the program, Yes, You Can Achieve Financial Independence, also for $10. Great opportunities. Thanks for coming tonight, and we'll see you next time.